Photos I took when I was about 19 or 20, I can't remember which, 1969, and they were photos of my mother. It was just one weekend. I just had my camera. I wasn't even thinking about it. Went home for the weekend and I said, "Hey Mom, would you pose for me?" And she said, "Sure." At one time was an incredibly beautiful woman and she loved the attention. And she was a drug addict, and she wore wigs because she had this, it's some kind of a phobia now that you pull out your hair, and I didn't know what it was at the time. So she had to wear wigs, and she was just dyeing her eyebrows and doing her usual beauty routines, and I just photographed her. Didn't think anything of them, you know, a weekend with my mother, and went back to school and took the negatives to the class. And the rest of the class, this was before people talked about anything really. It was in the 60s, and they were all stunned that that was my mother. At that moment, when I first realized there's something wrong with this picture, because my brothers and I look at the pictures of our mother and we just see our mother. We don't see what you see. Those are paintings I made in the 70s when I came to New York City. I thought conceptual art was everywhere, and so was photorealism. So I thought, I'll make a really smart photorealism. And I thought, I'll paint black and white photographs. At that point, black and white photographs were ubiquitous. Color wasn't everywhere in the 70s. And I wanted to do it on really raw canvas. I would go around the galleries and they said, yeah, these are photorealism, but they're really boring ones. Took all the images from cookbooks. 109 paintings, and I really made the paintings so I could make the TV commercial. And nobody really knew how inexpensive it was to rent 30 seconds of time on David Letterman, and that was $1,800. So I took the budget that art galleries give the artists to put ads in Art Forum. At that point it was Art Forum, Art in America, Arts Magazine, Flash Art. And we just bought 30 seconds on Arsenio Hall, Nightline, and David Letterman. We didn't have any ads in any of the art magazines. We just sent out a bunch of cards saying, watch David Letterman at 11:30. And if you were in the art world, you knew what it was. It worked out pretty well, I thought. I wanted to be the first person to have an ad in a commercial about a commercial show. I knew Chris Burton had made an ad. We shot it in one afternoon. At the time when I made the work, I was pro-sex feminist, and I knew that nobody has politically correct fantasies. But I got the idea after I was seeing the Mike Kelly show at Metro Pictures, where he was working with stuffed animal sculptures and stuffed animal paintings and felt banners and mall culture, unicorns, and I thought, this is brilliant, because he's this intellectual from Los Angeles. I thought, if a female artist would make this work, though, nobody would pay attention to it, because it changed the meaning that he was this smart guy from LA. I thought, well, what subject matter have women artists used? Here's this guy mining like a mall culture and an adolescent teenager, 12, 13-year-old girl. And what hit me was porn. And I thought, oh, but I've seen softcore porn made by women because I knew about Judy Bernstein. I thought, well, no, it has to be hardcore cum shots. And so the whole reason of making the work was to see if it changed the meaning, just the way, Mike Kelly working with this adolescent girl took a picture of what is in the world, these kind of pathetic stuffed animal sculptures. And I thought, does it change the meaning? And my problem really ended up being that I didn't have an answer. I was asking questions, and I still don't have an answer. And that's where we are today. The images nowadays look really tame. Nobody thinks anything of it. But at the time, they were scandalous because there was no internet, and artists are alone in their studios, and they're really pretty solitary beings. And I think it was kind of shocking at the time. And I thought everyone thought like I did. I wasn't for a minute thinking that I was doing something salacious or anything that would harm my career. I thought it was a really smart move. There was quite a bit of backlash, and it was the middle of political correctness. It was a terrible time for me. My vision, it wasn't like I had a choice in the matter. And it ended up being great. Everybody wants those paintings now. My side won, basically. Well, people know my work mostly from the very flashy, shiny jewelry or glamorous images. But I feel like at the same time I've always worked with what I think of as things that everybody knows, like pulling your socks down and you'll have lines, or dyeing your hair, what that looks like. And that was the purpose of the raw room. I've always worked with both elements constantly through my work, just making a picture of what we know is true, but no one's ever made that image before. Photographs for me are like drawings for traditional artists. I shoot always for paintings, but if I don't manipulate the photo and I don't have to do anything to it in Photoshop, then I use it as a photo, and I have an edition. I make a couple of photos a year, but most of the images that I make are to create paintings, which are combinations of negatives. Every painting doesn't come from a photo, it comes from what we call a reference. There could be 80 layers of Photoshop in the image. when people say to me, oh, you're painting from a photo, that's actually not true. I'm painting from an actual creation of reference, and I change it constantly. Enamel paintings take about a year or over a year to make, especially the large ones. And if you look at the paintings and you look at the photos in the same room, you'll see the huge difference. There's a depth, a richness in the paintings that you could never get in a photo. The splash video was a commission from the Brooklyn Museum, and the other artists that they were commissioning were mostly commercial artists, very successful, very good commercial artists. And I knew they'd make really slick, beautiful ads. So I was trying to do the anti-slick, anti-tight image. I had to make a 5-minute video concerning high heels. And so I used a model that is a dancer. It was dangerous to dance in that silver liquid. And she was 250 pounds, and she picked out the shoes, and we have to repurpose them and put sandpaper on them and re-sew them so they were really, not falling apart. And we glued dog hairs to the bottom, and she put on acrylic toenails, and I had tattoos up and down her legs, even though you can't see that in our editing. We took a lot of it out. But I was really happy with it. I slowed it down, and I tried to make it as beautiful as I could, but having the most unattractive processes. About 2009, I started working behind glass, because so much imagery that we see is behind glass. And I just thought that that's how we perceive advertising. It's almost always protected. And I'm thinking in terms of when you're driving your car, and I'm thinking maybe it's a rainy night and the car lights are flashing on a bus stop ad or a billboard, or even ads in stores. And sometimes the ads have graffiti on them on the glass, and sometimes the ads are old ads that they're waiting to take down and they're a little beat up. I don't really think it's interesting to make another pretty face or another good looking ad. I just want to make a picture of what it's like to live in a world that you're constantly bombarded with images, and they're not necessarily precious anymore. Pink Caviar was a commission from MAC, the makeup company. My job was to take pictures of eye makeup, and what I ended up doing is whenever the model was changing her makeup, I would ask her to come and lick glass between the shoots. And MAC didn't know I was going to do that, and they were really happy when MoMA bought it. They put it in a lobby of MoMA for over a year and a half. And Madonna bought it, and it was on Sunset Boulevard, and it was in Times Square. So Pink Caviar has had a really nice life of its own.